Peter B. Collins, News and Comment. It's Wednesday, October 5th, 2016. This free daily news and comment podcast is now available on YouTube. Share the word, will you? Makes it easier for people to access. And I guess 2016 is going to go down as the year of the hacker and the leaker. There is a new problem at the NSA. We'll get to that in a moment. But my lead story today is the outrage. Reuters reporting late yesterday that Yahoo's CEO, Melissa Meyer, agreed to a demand from the NSA and the FBI to set up a backdoor on all emails at yahoo.com. And they agreed to set up a system, some software, that scanned every email crossing Yahoo's servers, looking for unknown keywords or phrases. Now, that is a general warrant. There is no doubt in my mind that this is a clear and blatant, aggressive violation of the Fourth Amendment. And the Fourth Amendment was crafted by the founders of this nation because they objected to general warrants that the British had used, essentially saying we can search anybody, anywhere, anytime with this warrant. And the Fourth Amendment was designed to sharply limit the ability of government to use a general warrant. And that's what this is. And I'm really deeply outraged. And let me say at the outset here that this is so serious that I think President Obama should demand the resignations of James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, and Mike Rogers, the head of the NSA and the Cyber Command. And if Obama won't do that, he should submit his own resignation. Now, I know that probably seems just downright crazy to you. And on a practical level, given the turmoil that we're in during this bizarre presidential election cycle, the idea of demanding that Obama step down in the middle of all this, on a practical level, I agree, is a non-starter. But there are important principles at stake here. And this president has sold out our Bill of Rights, our constitutional rights. That's the contract I have with my government. And I'm an extremist, an absolutist, when it comes to the Bill of Rights. And I cannot accept that this president has presided over the cementing in place of egregious violations of our rights that do not make us safe and that end up delivering to our government mounds of information so much that they can't possibly sort through it all and find any meaningful suspects or bust up any plots of terrorists. We have reached the level of a police state. And for many years now, I've been calling it the creeping police state in the United States. It is no longer creeping. It is here. And when we see that the government, under the law that Barack Obama flipped on in 2008, if you remember, as a candidate for president, before he sewed up the nomination, Obama said he objected to the authorities that were in the FISA law, the Federal Surveillance Court. And as a campaigner, he said he would vote against them, but once he secured the nomination, he flipped, and in August of 2008, he voted for the extension of the FISA law. And it was actually amended to, I believe, permit the authorities that were used to force Yahoo to submit. So what we've learned is that Yahoo complied with a government order to build a backdoor into its Yahoo mail service, giving authorities the ability to spy on users in real time. There's no probable cause, There is no suspicion. It is not limited to suspects or specific individuals who are being investigated. It is a dragnet surveillance of millions of innocent people. And not all of them are Americans. The way our laws are written, we don't pay any attention to the invasion of privacy of non-Americans. But I do, and I think it's ugly and immoral and flatly illegal. So Yahoo crafted a non-denial, and I'm going to read the entire statement. Quote, "We narrowly interpret every government request for user data to minimize disclosure. The mail scanning described in the article does not exist on our systems." Now let's break this down, friends. We narrowly interpret every government request for user data to minimize disclosure. Now, back in 2007, under different management, Yahoo courageously defied an order from the FISA court. Not so under Melissa Meyer, who, of course, has sold the company to Verizon. That deal may unravel because of this and the hacking scandal that was reported just, a week or 10 days ago? Now, this raises important questions. Is Yahoo the only company that knuckled under? Well, we have explicit denials from the other companies. I'll get to those in just a moment. But I think it is a fair question. And it is hard to imagine that only one company would go along with this unconstitutional order and submit at a time when Apple was fighting, when encryption is being expanded. And some surveillance experts say this represents the first known case of a U.S. internet company agreeing to a spy agency's demand for searching all arriving messages, as opposed to examining stored messages or scanning a small number of accounts. And all we know is that they were looking for a specific phrase. And let's just make one up, okay? The Cadillac is in the shop. Let's imagine that that's the code phrase that terrorists would use to trigger some sort of a sleeper cell or a lone wolf. Well, how many people might have used a phrase like the Cadillac is in the shop because they have a Cadillac and it was in the shop? And you can apply this to any other string of words. I frequently quote people I don't agree with. And if I put that in an email, and of course somebody might copy the text from each day's podcast, the summary, they could put that in an email, and then that would be attributed to me. This is a really frightening development. And I'm not surprised by it. I believe this has been going on long before Ed Snowden surfaced. And what is interesting is Alex Stamos was the top security chief. His title was Chief Information Security Officer at Yahoo. And last year, in May, his team discovered the installation of this new backdoor and the software associated with it, and initially thought that hackers had broken in. When Stamos found out that Meyer had authorized the program, he resigned. He told his subordinates he'd been left out of a decision that hurt users' security. And due to a programming flaw, he told them hackers could have accessed the stored materials. And this argument has been raised by computer engineers all along, that if you install backdoors, not only authorized individuals will knock on that door and creep in. Now, we are learning that the demand to search the Yahoo Mail accounts came in the form of a classified directive sent to the company's legal team. U.S. phone and internet companies are known to have handed over bulk customer data to intelligence agencies, but some former government officials and private surveillance experts said they had not previously seen either such a broad directive for real-time web collection or one that required the creation of a new computer program. Albert Gadari, a lawyer who represented phone and internet companies for more than 20 years, he's now at Stanford, said, "I've never seen that, a wiretap in real time on a selector. A selector refers to a type of search term used to zero in on specific information. It would be really difficult for a provider to do that. Experts said it was unlikely that the NSA or FBI had approached other Internet companies with the same demand, since they evidently didn't know what email accounts were being used by their target. The NSA usually makes requests for domestic surveillance through the FBI, so it's hard to tell which agency is actually looking for the information. So here come the denials. Google, no way. Microsoft says it has never engaged in the secret scanning of email traffic. Now, when Google says this, we know they scan our emails to service ads related to information that is exchanged in our emails. So they're saying the government doesn't have access to the scanning that we do of your private communications. Twitter says it's never received such a request. Facebook, quote, has never received a request like the one described in these news reports from any government, and if we did, we would fight it. Apple says we've never worked with any government agency from any country to create a backdoor to any of our products or services. So I think this is as you can tell, a very serious issue. And when we look at the denial that came from Yahoo, I want to review this one more time. The article is misleading. They didn't say it's wrong. Misleading. The mail scanning described in the article does not exist on our systems. Well, you can interpret those weasel words many ways. Whose systems do they live on? Maybe they're in the cloud, which is really just a server farm down the road, right? But I don't believe what they're saying. And I've linked in the show file for today's podcast to Trevor Timm's commentary at The Guardian. He, of course, is affiliated with the Electronic Frontier Foundation and also the Freedom of the Press Foundation. And he writes, we do know that this is potentially a huge privacy violation that strikes at the heart of the Fourth Amendment's prohibition on indiscriminate search and seizure. This is an escalation of this type of about or upstream surveillance. About surveillance is where the government scans all emails for certain keywords. And civil liberties groups have been calling this illegal and unconstitutional for years. But no court so far has ruled definitively one way or the other. And it appears that our government is taking advantage of that gray area or loophole, if you will. And Tim concludes by saying, Yahoo's possible betrayal of its users is another example of why whistleblowers and leaks to the press are so important. The government considers this type of surveillance legal, even though it shocks the conscience of many Americans, and dozens of civil liberties groups have been attempting to have courts rule it illegal for years. This is the real legacy of Barack Obama. And I mentioned this yesterday. I have friends on Facebook who say they want to see Obama appointed to the Supreme Court by President Clinton. I'm sorry. Any president who would preside over this kind of unconstitutional activity has no excuse to serve on the Supreme Court. So now to the new leaker. Hacker? We're not sure who he is. His name is Harold Martin, age 51, lives in Glen Burnie, Maryland. He's been arrested by the FBI since late August. He was working for Booz Allen Hamilton, the same contracting company that Ed Snowden worked for in Hawaii for the NSA. Details suggest that the breach involved the possible theft of highly classified computer codes developed to hack into the networks of foreign governments. So he stole a software toolbox of hacking weapons that our government uses. Now, maybe he was going to sell them to the highest bidder. We don't know what his intentions were or are. But this is another breach of security at the NSA, and it is worrisome on many levels. We don't know if Harold Martin is a whistleblower or someone with other intentions. but we'll be looking for details in the coming days. Now, speaking of whistleblowers, this is a really bizarre resolution to a case that came out of the Pentagon. You remember Leon Panetta was first CIA director, then Obama moved him to the Pentagon, and he collaborated with the filmmakers who produced the propaganda piece called Zero Dark 30 about the alleged killing of Osama bin Laden. And a guy who blew the whistle on Panetta's leaks of classified information to the screenwriters of Zero Dark 30 has reached a settlement with the government. His name is Daniel Meyer. It's a different spelling from Melissa Meyer. And he used to be at the whistleblower department over there at the Pentagon, the Inspector General's office. He's a gay man who believes that he was discriminated against because of his orientation. And he has cut a deal that includes a monetary settlement, an agreement that the Inspector General will give Meyer 2 awards in recognition for his work. Now, remember last week, the intelligence community announced that they're going to offer some new awards to whistleblowers who went through channels. And maybe that's what they have in mind for Dan Meyer. But when you read deeper into the news account here, what we learn is that the Inspector General's office and Meyer have come to a mutually satisfactory resolution, including giving him an award. And after that, Meyer will withdraw and repudiate unconditionally and completely all allegations against the officials he accused. What? Now, let me repeat this. This is the guy who exposed that Leon Panetta leaked classified information. I don't believe that that is in dispute. And now, in this deal, they're going to give him cash and some plaques, and he's going to say, never mind, I was wrong. I withdraw those allegations. This is so insulting. This is such an insider fix. And as you may know, I've known Leon Panetta for many years. We're not close. He doesn't talk to me anymore. But I had many interviews with him, and we were friendly for many years. And I've been appalled. First in his work at CIA and then at the Pentagon. And this is just so... words fail me. And remember, Leon Panetta was portrayed in Zero Dark 30 by the guy who played Tony Soprano. And I believe that that was one of the ways that he was paid back by the filmmakers. So this is just so astounding. And this is similar to what James Comey did with the Clinton email investigation. Next, are they going to give her an award? Unbelievable. Every day I pause for a second to thank the people who make all this possible by supporting my work with your subscriptions to the Peter B. Collins podcast. People like Nick Yaksich, Bob Donjacour, who just completed his cross-country bike ride and is, I believe, on the train back to California from Denver right now. Susan Lundgren, George Reeves, thank you one and all for your support. And if you're not currently a subscriber, I could use your help. I've had recently a net loss of subscribers. It happens. It ebbs and flows. But it's time for you to step up. Go to peterbcollins.com, click on the menu button, then click on Become a Subscriber. It takes you to the sign-up page, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory from there. Gareth Porter has another great analytical piece published at Middle East Eye. It's linked in the show file of today's podcast, and he explains how the Pentagon, under current Defense Secretary Ashton Carter, defied President Obama as Obama was helping John Kerry try to work with the counterpart from Russia to develop some joint strategy to take on the Islamic State in Syria. And this occurred as Kerry had negotiated with Lavrov and others a ceasefire that was tenuous, but it was a start. And so the Pentagon, according to this analysis by Gareth Porter, and I encourage you to read it, undermined the entire effort. First, they refused to cooperate, even as ordered by President Obama, with intelligence sharing and other ways of trying to partner with the Russians in Syria. And then, well, you may recall that what is described as a mistake was the U.S. attack on a Syrian facility where they said they were going after the Islamic State. And this occurred in mid-September. More than 62 Syrian troops were killed, more than 100 others were wounded. And this is an air base in Deir ez-Zor. And this is an area that, according to Porter, the United States has carried out airstrikes for months. And so the idea that this was a mistake is extremely far-fetched. And when they blew up that airfield, it essentially led to distrust. Then there was the attack within, I think it was 2 days later, on the UN relief convoy near Aleppo. We still don't know who exactly was responsible for that or how they did it. But these are really ugly stories of defiance of the president. He can't control the Pentagon, he can't control the NSA, or maybe he doesn't want to. At this point, it's really hard to know. Meanwhile, it's hardly a secret. The U.S. and the refurbished Iraqi military are gearing up to attack the town of Mosul. And they're already expecting it to produce a huge humanitarian crisis. The assault is supposed to start as early as October 19th or maybe before early December. It's not clear. But I am wondering why they're telegraphing this. I mean, it's right here in my San Francisco Chronicle, and I don't know if the Daesh leaders in Raqqa read the Chronicle, but anyway, they've already budgeted for the humanitarian crisis even before the assault starts. It's going to be a long winter in Iraq, and I just have to ask, why didn't they start this during the summer fighting season? I don't know. Oh, yeah, there was a debate on TV last night between the vice presidential candidates of the major parties, Tim Kaine and Mike Pence. It was not the snoozer I predicted because Tim Kaine was very aggressive, and he interrupted Mike Pence on many occasions. And he was so aggressive that many people say that Pence won the debate just by stoically sitting there and absorbing all that bullshit. And also, Pence refused to criticized Donald Trump despite 6 different angles that Tim Kaine trotted out. One of the funniest things was in the first response that Mike Pence gave, they should have corrected him or fact-checked him on the spot because he referred to the college where the debate was being staged as Norwood, I think, and I think it's called Longwood. Anyway, it's out in the boonies in Virginia somewhere. And it wasn't a sleeper, I'll put it that way. But what we saw was both candidates on the attack, and Mike Pence used what we call projection. He repeatedly accused the Democrats of doing what Trump has been doing, running an insult-based campaign. And that tactic wasn't very persuasive to me. But if you're already, inclined to support Trump, I think that Pence probably connected with those voters better than Tim Kaine connected with either undecideds or the Democratic base. And what was really noteworthy is that Mike Pence described a very different approach to Russia, diametrically opposed to his top-ticket running mate, Donald Trump. He was just, very negative about Putin, and he and Pence basically took the same position on, promoting a Cold War with Russia in the current time frame. And, these debates don't really matter. Neither candidate made a huge blunder that, makes them appear disqualified for the job. But it was also dispiriting to see how conservative Tim Kaine really is. He's personally pro-life, although he made the case for abortion rights. He's personally against the death penalty, but he proudly claimed that he executed people as governor of Virginia. And so overall, it was a pretty empty exercise. And we have another one scheduled here in California tonight. We have an open Senate seat. Barbara Boxer is retired. And Kamala Harris, who is the Attorney General of California, is cruising to take that seat. She has an opponent named Sanchez, Loretta Sanchez from Orange County, Southern California. And this debate is so unnecessary, really, because Harris has it wrapped up, that media outlets have declined to carry it. It's going to be on C-SPAN. That's the only network I'm able to watch the debate for the next senator of California. And they're both younger women, so they would likely hold the job for 15 or 20 years. Over in the Libertarian Party, Bill Weld, the vice presidential candidate there, has essentially signaled that he's giving up on the long shot campaign with Gary Johnson and has decided to focus on attacking Donald Trump for the rest of the campaign. And Gary Johnson kind of signaled yesterday that he's throwing in the towel, too. On CNN, he said, well, I guess I wasn't meant to be president. Well, I mean, Jill Stein knows she's not going to win, too. But you have to maintain that forward momentum and the illusion that you could win if everything fell into place. And I guess the Libertarians are accepting reality 5 weeks before the actual election. In a good move, the Drug Enforcement Administration has ordered drug manufacturers to reduce the production of opioid drugs in 2017 by about 25%. Now, this hopefully will tighten up the supply so that only people who truly need these painkillers will receive them. And I just want to take a second here to commiserate with people who live with daily pain. I injured my back a few weeks ago. I was shoveling some gravel, and I don't do manual labor very much, and my lower right back was in pretty sharp pain for about a week. And I didn't reach for the opioids. I used from over-the-counter pain relievers and yoga and massage and heat and cold, and I am feeling great now. But I have real compassion for people who have serious pain and for whom these drugs provide almost magical relief. But their potency and their addictive powers are incredible, and we're starting to come to grips with that. Over at the United Nations tomorrow, they will pronounce a new Secretary General, likely to be Antonio Guterres, former Prime Minister of Portugal. He spent the last 10 years running the UN Refugee Agency, and given that we have the largest number of refugees worldwide since World War II, I think that's pretty appropriate. It is expected that the Security Council will approve his position tomorrow. And finally, a victory for the women of Poland. And it's a minor victory because their right to an abortion is already so limited. But the idea of an almost total ban, without exception for the life of the mother, incest, rape, etc. Well, as I mentioned yesterday, more than 30,000 people took to the streets of Warsaw and other cities. And holy cow, the leaders are actually listening. And senior politicians have distanced themselves from this proposal to completely ban abortion. And it appears that the legislation will be aborted itself. Thanks for joining me for my free daily news and comment podcast. As mentioned, it's available on YouTube. You can find it there. I remain Peter B. Collins.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails.